Hello everybody, welcome back into the Color Gemstone Academy. I am Paul Deasy, your instructor, and this is my YouTube channel, Paul Deasy Gemstones. Well, as you can see, wearing a hat today. I just couldn't get around to having enough time, I'm so busy today, to shave and do my hair properly, so you get to enjoy the hat for the rest of this episode. This week is episode 18 of our question and answer series. So these are, as always, questions that come to your mind, and I try and get to them as much as I can. I had a couple of questions recently about what's the best way to reach me to get your questions. And really, after any video you watch and you see comments, add them in the comments. I spend more time probably on the YouTube platform than anything else. I really spend very little time on Facebook. So anyway, let's go to our very first question of this week, and it is an excellent one, and it is from Diane Miller, and she was asked this question after watching Q&A episode 17, and here's what she has to say. I am living near the Cortland turquoise mine in southeast Arizona. I purchased a small piece, and the seller actually said it was Sleeping Beauty. As I've been introduced to your videos this past week, I now doubt the validity of that. By the way, I love the way that you write. Most of the times I have to do a lot of editing to read the questions, but this is excellent. I think there's one comma that was missed. However, my question has to do with a ruby. My original wedding ring was stolen several years ago, so my husband and I shopped at a box store for something different, as my tastes have changed after 49 years of marriage. And Diane, I'm going to guess that you meant your taste in jewelry have changed, not your taste in husbands have changed after 49 years of marriage. I'm just kidding. What I didn't know was that the ring was poorly made and a prong broke off, and I lost the center stone. So I took it to a jewelry store where the owner said he would order a few rubies for me to select which one I would like, and he would repair the ring for me. A couple of weeks later, I received a call to come pick it up and pay the balance due. I was shy about questioning what I was supposed to pick out a ruby, not pick up the ring. I went home with a pink stone that I didn't really like, but it was already set in my ring. After a few days, I returned to the shop and nicely voiced my disappointment. The jeweler, who's also the owner, said he misunderstood and thought he was to pick the stone, but he would correct the mistake, and did so, having me choose a red stone. Now I've learned from you that the pink stone wasn't a ruby at all. My question is, knowing this gentleman has owned the business for at least as many years as I've been married, it seems doubtful that he didn't know that a pink stone was not a ruby and did not match the other small stones in the actual wedding band. Would you suggest, though he corrected this situation, that I should challenge him for originally giving me a pink stone rather than a red ruby? I would have no intentions of making it a legal issue, but I wonder if it could have been an innocent mistake on his part, as he's been in the business so long. I don't think he would know, I would think he would know the difference and owe me the courtesy of explaining his poor choice. What do you think? Wow. By the way, fantastic question. You're on fire. I know you've written a couple other questions, but this is a great job. And I'm calling out some of my other subscribers. You know who I'm talking about, Glenna and Tommy Lynch. You're going to have to step up your game. We have a new sheriff in the question town, and her name is Diane. No, honestly, really good question. Okay, let's first start with the Sleeping Beauty part of your question. It would not be unusual, and especially I know where you are, there's probably gem boutiques associated with the mine that you were talking about. And it would not be unusual for someone who's an expert in turquoise to have turquoise specimens from all different places in the Southwest US, or in fact the world. So it would not be unusual, but you're right to be suspicious, because even though the person who's showing it to you might believe that it is Sleeping Beauty, it's almost impossible to improve that provenance of that stone. I'll give you a couple of great examples. When I was selling a lot of Sleeping Beauty, and right about the time that the Sleeping Beauty mine closed, which was June of 2012, I saw more Sleeping Beauty turquoise coming out of the woodwork than there could possibly have been real. There were a lot of just counterfeits. There were a lot of things that looked like it from other mines, and people were passing it off as Sleeping Beauty. And there's some that were just right out fraud. They're pieces of plastic that I saw being sold as Sleeping Beauty. And this really is going to relate to your ruby question as well, because I remember also right after that time, and I was really having incredibly successful shows in legitimate Sleeping Beauty. One of my manufacturers, who's also a very good friend, who's been in the business for over 30 years, said to me, or I was telling him about a lot of the frauds out there. He says, well, what difference does it make? He says, as long as turquoise is robin's egg blue color and it has no matrix, then it's Sleeping Beauty turquoise. And I said, no, that's not true. If it doesn't come from that mine in Globe, Arizona, it is not the coveted Sleeping Beauty turquoise. Do other mines produce some of those that are robin's egg blue? And Kingman does, but they don't pass it off as Sleeping Beauty turquoise. So unfortunately, in the gem business, which can be confusing at best for a lot of people, sometimes the perception becomes reality, and people think, well, there's all this Sleeping Beauty, and they don't bother to do your homework. That's why I say you always really need to, trust your source. But this does have some sort of tie with your ruby question, because your question is really about the jeweler. And what did he do? Was it on purpose? Was he trying to get, pull one on over on you? And chances are probably not. I'll give you some other examples of how perception becomes a reality. I'm a purist. I know that when you're talking about rubies and sapphires, sapphire can be virtually any color of the rainbow except red. If a gemstone that is a corundum is red, it's considered a ruby. If it's any other color, including pink, it's considered to be a sapphire. But here's where things get a little bit dicey, and this is why I say don't be too hard on this guy. Number one, there's so many gradations of colors when you're going from a red to a pink, and there's so many shades in between. When does it stop being red and starts becoming pink? So that's one thing, and certainly color is a very personal choice. And I always say that color is the most important thing in a colored gemstone. Another great example, I'm a purist. I hear people talking to me sometimes about, there's a green quartz called Crazy Light Quartz. It's beautiful. And a lot of people take liberties and they start to call it green amethyst. That absolutely rubs me the wrong way. Now, your jeweler might do that. There's probably nothing truly wrong about saying that, but I'm a purist. There is no such thing as green amethyst. Amethyst is purple, period. End of story, full stop. So I was at the Tucson Gem Show, meeting with a miner who produced a lot of crazy light. So I'm talking to him about his stones. I talked about how pretty they were, and he says, I have the best green amethyst in the world. And I said, there's no such thing as green amethyst. He says, oh, no. That's because you haven't seen my green amethyst. So you kind of get where I'm going there. Again, perception starts to become reality. I'm fighting an uphill battle telling people there's no such thing as green amethyst, even though there isn't. So I would not call him out on it. That was the question that you were asking me to advise you on. I would continue going to him. I would continue having a dialogue with him. You share a love of gemstones, excuse me, and you can share the knowledge that you have, and you're going to find out that it's going to be a very good relationship. As I said, it didn't ruin my relationship with my friend and manufacturer who said, well, anything that's, robin's egg blue and has no matrix is Sleeping Beauty turquoise. So I wouldn't worry about it. In the end, he did the right thing. He gave you the right stone, and you got the stone that you wanted, and it should always be the one that you choose, not that something he chooses for you. And one last thing on an already elongated answer. And this could have been a possibility too. Pink is a very cyclical taste in the gem industry. And sometimes when pink gets really, really hot, then the prices of the pink sapphires and the prices of the pink tourmaline go through the roof. I've seen it happen in the past where you couldn't get any pink tourmaline or you couldn't get any pink sapphire. So he could have legitimately, depending upon when it was that you made this purchase, He may have legitimately thought he was doing you a favor because that was the popular stone color at the time. But in the end, you got the ruby you wanted, and that's all that matters. And I commend you on great questions. And for all of you that, if I haven't read your questions yet, I'm inundated with a lot of them. I'll get to them as soon as I can, but I read each and every one of them. Okay, so I may only have time for 2 more questions because the first one was lengthy, but I thought it was important for all of you to hear that question and the answer to that question. Our next question comes from Judy Fry from episode 60, which was the Wild Horse Gemstone. She says, Paul, I have a necklace that I got as a gift and they were told it was white turquoise, but I know there's no such thing. My stone is white and gray. Could it be wild horse? Very excellent question, Judy. Now, Judy, if you're watching this, I know that I already touched upon this when we were doing Sunday Fun Day with Paul and Judy a week or so ago, but I thought it was worth repeating on this format for people that might have similar questions. You're right, there's no such thing as a white turquoise. In fact, I say this over and over and over again on any turquoise lesson. Turquoise is mined where basically copper is found. If there is no copper, there is no turquoise. In fact, it is turquoise is hydrous phosphate of copper and aluminum. Again, there's a hydrous phosphate of aluminum without copper. It's not called turquoise, it's called variscite. So we start with the premise there's no such thing as white turquoise. However, there is such a thing as called the sacred white buffalo turquoise, which is something different altogether. White buffalo is calcite and quartz, and in some very, 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 very rare specimens, you might find a white buffalo stone, which is a calcite and quartz, with a little vein or a little piece of turquoise that ended up growing in that stone. And that's very rare, and they call that sacred white buffalo turquoise. Although, again, I would not classify it as turquoise. I'd classify it as a white buffalo or a calcite and quartz with a little vein of turquoise in it. So the question is, could it be magnesite? That white to gray that you'll see in the gemstone would be something that could be calcite and quartz, so it could be a white buffalo. I suspect it probably is the magnesite, where you have some white and some gray magnesite in there, some discoloration in that white magnesite. So I guess it's probably a version of either pristine or wild horse, one of the two. It could be either one of those. But I appreciate the question, and I was glad to share with everyone that answer. Okay, so it seems today that we have time for one more question, and it is from Mike G, and this is from episode 20, Peridot. And he says, August babies don't know how good they have it to have a beautiful, affordable, widely available birthstone. Well, Mike, I 100% agree with you. You're preaching to the choir, brother. During my entire career of selling gems on shopping channels, I was always stunned when I'd meet somebody who would say, you know, we'd have dialogue about gemstones, and I'd say, you know, oh, what's your birth? When were you born? August. I say, oh, you have peridot as your birthstone. And people would say, you know, I'm not that crazy about it. And I would be like beside myself. I'm like, have you seen peridot? Do you know how pretty it can look depending on where you shop for it? In fact, sometimes I'd even show them one. And they say, well, that's pretty. What is that? I'm like, that's peridot. They're like, no, it's not. I'm like, yes, trust me, it is. So I made it my life's mission, and I was working at Shop NBC at the time, and I had a beautiful big peridot stone in a gorgeous setting with a halo around it. And I literally challenged the audience. I said, listen, I know some of you think you don't like peridot, but your eyes will never deceive you. Like, I want you to buy this. If you don't love it, I don't care. Send it back. You'll get a full refund, no questions asked. But I want you to see it with your own eyes. Well, that became the single most popular and highest reviewed gemstone I ever did on that network. It had the highest reviews, almost all of them 5 stars, and that it ended up, we started a tongue-in-cheek club that we called the Former Peridot Haters Club. So if any of you are on the fence or you don't think you like peridot, go look at a really nice peridot and tell me if it doesn't become one of your favorite stones. Well, as I said, I was a little long-winded on the first answer. I'll keep some more of the questions for next week's episode. But in the meantime, if you've not yet subscribed to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. I know subscribe can be a scary word, but it doesn't mean you have to pay for it. It's completely free. It just allows me to get more and more subscribers, which allows me to keep doing these lessons for you absolutely free of charge. Thank you so much for watching. Next week, I have a great question about buying turquoise directly from a mine. I'll see you next week, everybody. Thanks for watching.